Milo, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Imagine there's people all over the world listening to this and we're doing absolutely nothing of interest.
Yeah, but it's the anticipation that something exciting is going to happen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, people are sitting glued to their computers or their listening devices, their phones, their phone.
Or they're sitting in the car, what's his name is in his truck. Blah, blah, blah.
What's his name?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember his name.
His name is Scott Lister.
No, not Scott. Scott's doing.
Oh, you mean James Henry?
James Henry, yes, James Henry, the guy with two first names.
Yeah. Yeah, and you don't have two first names.
No, yeah, depend.
Well, yeah. Kelly is a very popular girl's name.
Girl's name, yeah, and also a guy's name. We got a guy.
So then you have two first names.
That's true. I forgot about that.
Starting with you forgot about it. It's only been.
I got a little froggy throat tonight.
I see that. Yeah. Are you losing weight?
I think so. A little bit. I don't think it's a lot.
Are you slendering down?
Not really too much. I got this small inner tube around it needs to go away.
You want to maintain your girlish figure.
Well, I want to be able to walk. That's what I mean.
Why can't you walk?
Well, I have early stages of gout.
Oh yeah, what is gout?
Gout is like it's a accumulation of uric acid. I think it is and usually it's in the foot, in a toe or in the foot. And what happens is the body doesn't take it away. So there are a lot of medicines that you can take, but there's a lot of side effects to it. But I found out that if you drink like 2 tablespoons of tart cherry juice, which means it's 100% cherry juice, that you take that every day, it goes away. And so far it's been doing that.
Well, who told you about the tart cherry juice? You read that on the internet.
I read it on the internet and it works. It works. It works.
Right now, our buddy Mike Hauk, the former Navy doctor, is just like shaking his head.
Oh yeah,
and
he can be shaking his head. I'm living proof that it works.
Yeah, until you start growing toes outside your forehead or something.
No, not with tart cherry.
Well, how do you know? Yeah,
the only side effect that some people have reported is their diabetes or something like that because you're getting too much sugar. I'm going, oh great, everybody's got something that's going to kill you.
You know what Jim Morrison said, eh?
What did Jim Morrison say from the Doors, right?
Yeah. Nobody gets out of here alive.
Oh, yes. No, that's that's right. He did say that. I was thinking of Hotel California.
That's the Eagles.
Yeah, the Eagles.
You can check in. Last door. You can check in, check out, but you can never leave.
Can't never leave. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole different. Cool. That's a whole different group.
Yeah, I know.
Jim Morrison was he was a highlight. He was ahead of his time. That's right. This is a variety hour.
Oh boy!
And you're here you're my West Coast guy because it's late at night in the studio,
and everybody's asleep.
And I wanted to work on this podcast, and I thought, well, I'll just call my West Coast guy.
Yeah,
my hipster guy.
Yeah, yeah.
And the first part of it's only a 2-parter variety hour, and it's mostly home shops. But in the first part, there's like about a 20-minute little chit chat with Jordan Smith of Rapido Trains.
Your fast track, you're model railroading fast track. What your fast model railroading? Your fast track to model railroading. Fun. Oh, it's been so long since I've done that.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
Rapido Trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
Are you coming to Springfield?
I have my ticket. I have my reservation.
Wow. You're not gonna embarrass me in front of Jason Strawn or anything, are you?
You mean like say to? Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I would not. I have some really good dealings with Rapido, and I'm very happy with what they've done.
That wasn't the question.
Well, no, I wouldn't embarrass you in front of him.
I figure right now it's a 50-50 shot.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't think so.
But he's Rapido trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
Come on,
He's
a little. Come on,
I know.
Your fast
It's
track to model railroading
really
fun.
fun. Yes.
If it's N, if it's H-O, the fast track is Rapido.
We got a lot of new stuff coming out. It's really cool.
Yeah, I know. They get some really cool stuff. How many 44 tonners are you going to get?
One.
Don't just one?
Yeah, that's all I need.
Why weren't you at the last fans show?
Oh, that was a Sunday. That weekend, I had no birthday parties at the park. I had no run day on Sunday, and I was spending time with my wife and home and doing all sorts of things. And I never looked at my phone to see what messages were coming through until I laid down to go to sleep because I had to go to work next morning early. And I just said, "Oh man, I missed that podcast." I'm going, but I'm sure you I'm sure you talked about me anyway.
Oh yeah, we did. Actually, after we finish this introduction and the wrap up for this particular show, then we gotta do a little intro for fans because it was like I'll tell you when we do it.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's tomorrow.
Oh, all right, good.
And yeah, it comes out tomorrow, so we'll talk about it when we do we're gonna do a little ditty for it.
Oh, okay.
I was awful. It was like the worst show I ever did.
You're never. You know what? I've never of all the podcasts that I've listened to, I have not had a bad one as far as the crew or you.
Yeah, well, on this one, I ended up feeling pretty bad because I beat on Lauren James like a redheaded stepchild.
Yeah, but that makes him feel wanted. Man, if someone is if you're not taking a couple of shots there, you're getting
you're getting passed by.
You're getting passed by because you're definitely there for a reason, and it's the shtick, it's the fun, and we love everybody that it's on the crew, and everybody's got their own little unique shtick or thing, and the fact that we can do that, it's just like being like you said, being on the back porch or at the hobby shop or whatever, and just having a good old time. And
I was talking about it to Uncle Dave the other day, and we haven't heard it yet. It was a fireside chat, might be even a month away. Yeah, you're gonna like this one. It was very philosophical.
Oh, those are the good ones.
I know. I was really enjoying myself. And anyways, I said to him, it's locker room humor. It's what you do in a locker room. You got you beat the
baseball.
You abuse the crap out of each other, but then you go out on the ice and you go out on the ice as a 22-man unit, and you got each other's back, and you're trying to beat the other team, and you can't do it if you don't all pull together. It's
right. And also, if anybody else from outside takes a crack at you,
yeah,
God forbid that happens, because that means there's going to be a bunch of guys that are going to come back at that person.
Exactly. And what sports did you play?
I was I wasn't really good at baseball. I did play baseball, especially the local kids would get together, and we had great games, and we played I'll tell you the story. We used to play, the young kids would play against the older kids or the adults, and the only way they could advance on bases was to be able to hit a home run. And if they didn't hit a home run. And it was great that we'd play from like 4:00 in the afternoon to 9 at night in the summertime, and it was just the whole neighborhood was out doing that. So it was just a great time. But I tried baseball. I didn't really like it too much. I did the little league route, and then I did in high school. I was a
cheerleader.
No, not cheerleader. I was a terrible. I'd be terrible at that. I was track and field. So okay. I tried pole vault, and I just couldn't get that. That's the idea of trusting that pole to bend and then push me over the bar was it just didn't
work.
It didn't work out. And then I tried high jump, and that didn't work out. And then I didn't have speed, so I wasn't fast enough for the short distances. But I did cross country, I did the 440. and then I did cross country, and I actually started running a little bit, but it got tiring after a while.
Running,
and then I tried
running
yeah,
got tiring.
yeah, and
See,
then
now that's the first time I've ever heard that running is tiring.
Yeah, and then when I was in college, I tried lacrosse.
Oh, okay, lacrosse. That's a great game.
It's a great game, but it's wicked. I mean,
that's the game. That's the game that my dad in 1939. That's what got him enlisted into the Toronto Scottish Regiment, because my dad and his 4 brothers were kind of scrappy, and my dad was in a lacrosse game and got into this huge fight to the point. And so this is 1939, and the police weren't everywhere in 19. But the fight was so big, the cops wanted to throw him in jail when he was like 17 or 18. So my uncle, who was already a major in the regiment, just took him and signed him up and shipped him overseas.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that is a great game. It's a game that that's tough. I think it makes football and baseball and unfortunately hockey.
Well, let me ask you a question. When you were playing lacrosse or when you were doing long distance running, did you ever, like, say if you were playing lacrosse, did you ever have Rapido trains?
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
Rapido trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
On the bench with you?
No. Rapido didn't come around until I moved out west.
Oh, okay. All right, that's it.
That's it.
We're done with this introduction. It's like 20 minutes with Jordan Smith from Rapido Trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
If it's N, if it's H-O, the fast track is Rapido.
And
well, of course.
and then we have like about an hour and 20 minutes with Chris Palmieri of Home Shops.
Home Shops. Yep. Good.
Yeah. So it's a good one. So you know what to do now?
Yeah. Subway chimes go.
So now we're recording.
All right.
So now how's it going, eh?
That's very good.
Yeah, beauty, eh?
Beauty.
Kick saving a beauty. So now we're sitting here with Jordan Smith. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Am I pronouncing it right? Is it Smith?
It is, actually. It's difficult to pronounce incorrectly, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And you are, what's your job at you're the president, are you not?
The president and CEO of Making Silly Videos.
That's not all, though.
No.
Aren't you like the president of the company?
According to the boss, but he fired me a while back when I spilled a can of Coke on his desk, which was actually earlier this afternoon. So I've been knocked down a couple of pegs. So
what is your official title?
Technically public relations, but I mean,
I thought you were listed as like the president. I know he's the CEO or something.
The senior vice president of silly videos and Facebook posts.
That's not all you do.
No, I do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes I put the dishwasher on Thursday night before I go home.
Right. Because
take out the garbage.
This is the point where I always tell the story. The first time I ever came here, you were sitting behind the reception desk.
Yep. Well, when I was first hired, this is almost it'll be 8 years in the winter. This coming winter.
Right. Yeah.
I did receptionist, answer the phones. I did emails. I did all the shipping.
Right.
And I picked up the milk Monday morning.
How many people were working here then when you first started?
It was about 6.
Because was Dan here by then?
Darnell he'd been here only a few months. He'd started in September 2015, and I started in January.
Okay.
So he'd only been here about 5 or 6 months. And I came along after that, and
and you were a bicycle repair guy before that.
Well, that was Gomez.
Oh.
I worked at Georgia Trains for
that's right too, yeah.
Since 2002.
That's kind of what happens.
Off and on.
Everybody raids Georgia's Trains.
Yep.
Takes the staff.
10 years at Sunnybrook Hospital, and then...
that's right. What did you do there?
Bordering department.
That's right.
So I did a little bit of everything as well, but good exercise.
So now you're being very evasive. What exactly is what's your main job here?
So Jeremy makes the videos, but I kind of I'm in some of them, and I help coordinate.
Right,
them.
I've seen that. He won't put me in one. I don't know why. And I think here's what
We are putting you in one.
I know.
Hasn't he already talked to you yet?
Yeah, he just talked to me briefly.
That's the N-scale video.
Yeah, but I thought for sure he was just blowing me off because came up and said, "Here's my idea."
Yeah.
Because I got mad at Dave Abley's Uncle Dave the other day.
Yeah.
He did the turbo liner one, and I said I wanted to be in that one because all I was going to do was show up halfway through a scene eating a bag of Ruffles. Mm-hmm. Go. What are you doing?
We should have flown you all the way down there just for that one scene.
I was going to drive. I would have driven myself, but he'd already made the video, him and Bobby Aller.
We did the original Turboliner video in 2019, September 2019. We went down to Adam's yard to actually measure the real Turboliner. And the joke of the video was I'm on my way down there. I'm just wandering the countryside, Pennsylvania, upstate New York. We're just going around. And I end up walking past Dave's house on the way to the Turboliner. And he's just getting his mail, and I wave and I say, "Hello, hey, Dave." And I just keep going. So that was good. He's a good sport. So
Dave is one of a kind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, anyways, I gotta be in one of the videos. I think it should be a recurring bit where I just walk into a scene.
Absolutely. Sooner rather than later.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you need a dumb guy, I'm your guy.
That's usually my job.
Yeah, you were kind of nodding pretty quickly there. So you were talking to me about N-scale.
Yep.
And we wanted to talk about N-scale.
N-scale is, it's been interesting. We had, I think in 2021 and 2022, we had more new N-scale toolings and N-scale projects announced or in the planning stages pretty much since the beginning of the company.
Okay.
There was just a ton of N-scale stuff, and we found it's been really hit and miss. We had the N-scale Turboliner, which is actually, we've got an order deadline coming up, I think it's actually next week, June 15th. That project, very successful. The center beam flat cars in N-scale, very successful. But we have all these other N-scale projects. We've got the barrel ore hoppers, which were huge in HO.
Right.
N-scale, not so much. The Santa Fe reefers, the mechanical reefers, the Procore 5820 plastic pellet hoppers.
Right.
It just doesn't seem to be the interest. And we've got the passenger sets we also announced. All of the N-scale Canadian passenger sets. That's the CN Supercontinental line cars that we haven't, the Panorama line, thinking HO. And we haven't run a lot of those cars in over 10 years in some cases.
Right.
And there just doesn't seem to be the interest we were hoping for.
Do you think that's a post-pandemic thing?
It could be a couple of factors. I know we've been trying different things to see what really works for the N-scale market.
Sure, yeah.
It seems that box sets are really the way to go. That's what we tried to do with the Canadian passenger sets, the Ocean and whatnot. Again, we'll see because the order line for that set's not. That's coming up in July, so we've got time. But we've been kind of surprised at the response so far. So we'll have to see.
And I mean, it must be a fascinating experience. I mean, right now you're getting frustrated by what's happening in N-scale, but being here 8 years and going through this process of learning the industry, even though sometimes it would be frustrating, it must be at the end of the day pretty fascinating.
Oh, it always is.
Like a jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, of course. I mean, every day's a little bit different, but just aside from actually developing the models and promoting them, just learning what people want, what's correct for the different markets. It's actually fascinating seeing what modelers want in each different category.
It must be a real and then when you have something like what is one of the pellet car? Would you say the pellet hopper?
Yeah, it's a Procore plastic pellet hopper. We did them in HO. Again, very successful car, Canadian built car by Procore, and they did really well. We denounced them in N-scale. It's tooled. We've got the tooling samples. Very nice. We've got etched metal roof walks and everything. And we've just been kind of shocked at the lack of interest in them. There's a number of factors that could play into that, which of course we think about. And I mean, these products will come out, but it's just over time.
Yeah, you got to decide on what the
exactly.
There's financial. A company like this constantly. There's got to be a constant eye on the finances.
Exactly.
Because of the tooling and the this and that.
Yeah, precisely.
So some of these cars that might not get made will eventually get made.
Oh yeah, I mean like the plastic pellet hopper, the N-scale barrel ore hopper, the Santa Fe reefer. We've got we've got tooled samples. They're here at at our event today. They look wonderful, so they are going to come out. It's just a matter of kind of when.
Do you think
when they might show up.
price for N scale pays? Because I'm thinking,
Yep.
like, what is an HO roughly a year? Which reminds me, I want to get some HO cars.
Absolutely. We got lots here, so we'll probably make some arrangement. Yeah. But like an HO, generally a box car, just off the top of my head, freight cars are usually between, and this is MSRP, between 55 and 65.
Right.
It varies depending on the type of car and its complexity. N scale is a bit less, of course. So it's.
I was just going to say, I'm sorry I cut you off. I should know by now not to. But someday we'll have a good podcast.
Yes.
Then we can demand more money from our sponsors.
Exactly.
But that must be a problem for N scale because, like I remember talking to Jason about flat car.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Costs just as much to make, and people are kind of like, well, it's only a flat car.
Yep.
So do you find that in N scale where people are like, I can't pay?
I think there's definitely that factor. I think what we were aiming to do with some of our N-scale freight cars was put a lot of the detail that you see in HO into an N-scale car, and that doesn't necessarily translate.
Okay. So
it's great to do that, but then when the costs are going up considerably for tooling, you've got to factor that into the end price, and that there is, of course, there's that there can be sticker shock in a lot of cases.
Right.
So we're actually taking like a lot of what we've been doing with a lot of our N-scale freight cars lately in our rolling stock. We might look at doing maybe simpler, more kind of generalized designs and see maybe that's something we could do in the future.
Do you think that would ever be a possibility to come back as where cars are more, you have a line of cars that just aren't as exquisitely detailed? Like I often think to myself, like my heyday, after I did the girls and cars and I got married and I started to settle down again, my heyday was the early 80s when the Atlas... the yellow box Atlas Cato drive locomotives came out.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I remember getting, a half a dozen undecorated Jeep 7s, and I enjoyed, taking the razor blade and scraping the ladder grabs off and putting on detail parts. Do you think there's ever a chance that a manufacturer might return to some sort of a simplistic?
I mean, you do have that in a lot of cases. I mean, you've got, like, Walthers has their mainline series.
Right.
You've got... a lot of the Roundhouse series or ready-to-roll cars that are coming from Athearn. A lot of those are older toolings, or some even with the new Walthers cars. A lot of those are newer toolings, but they're more designed like an older freight car would have been.
Okay. So I got a question for you.
Sure.
There's other manufacturers who don't necessarily need to be named, but they have a tendency to go around and buy old toolings, which I don't ever remember you guys doing.
I don't think we've done that yet. I mean, we're still a pretty new company.
Right.
So that's the thing. We haven't really gone around and bought other companies' existing toolings before, as far as I know.
I mean, I see Rapido starting to become like, I don't know, for our argument's sake, the Lexus of model railroading, where their stuff is always up here. And is that a discussion during the meetings where it's like, you really don't want to get away from because that seems to be becoming a common thread with people. Rapido stuff is unbelievably exquisite.
Well, we actually tried that. So several years ago, we did the Dash 8, which was that was the C40-8M, the original run back in, I think it was 6 or 7 years ago.
Right.
It was more simpler tooling, things that, like all the extra detail that you might see in a high-end model, like our retooled Dash 8 that we just have kind of going into production now.
Right.
We did that kind of lower detailed version, and at the end of the day, you still have a lot of the same tooling costs, a lot of the same production costs, and we found out that the sales numbers would be on par with what we would have gotten if we'd done it as a full high-end model.
Oh, okay.
So it's really...
It is not a long... It is... Hang on a minute. It is not a long drive. Hey, Jeremy, it is not a long drive. It's 92 kilometers. I'm 94. Try to relax, okay?
Uh-oh.
It's still not a long drive.
So
all right, just 2 seconds. I only keep you for literally 2 seconds.
All right.
Take that one. Do you know how to work a microphone, Jeremy?
I believe I have a certain amount of experience with
Okay,
them.
well, what happened is I was talking to Jordan.
Yeah, and he was just up and out of here, yeah.
Smith. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Is it Smith?
Smythe? Smitty?
Yeah, Smitty.
Yeah.
I was talking to Smitty.
Yeah.
Oh, you see, here he comes now. He's still on the phone. Smitty's still on the phone.
The boss phoned him from 27
now
feet
he's
away.
walking faster. Are you back? I'm back. Oh, he's good. Give him the. Sorry, Jeremy.
I'm just a placeholder. I'm like those people at those award
you're
shows.
out, Jeremy. You're out, buddy.
All right. Good talking to you, AML Nation. We'll talk soon.
All right, you're out. Yeah.
Your other left that way.
There you go. What happened?
He just said he's had to run home, but if you want to pass by his house to chat, he's willing to sit down with you this evening. If you're on the way past there,
all right,
he'll sit down with you for.
Do you think he'll be annoyed if I don't stop by?
I think either way he's happy.
Okay. Because I don't want to piss the guy off.
Oh no, definitely
he
not.
is the sponsor after all.
Of course. So I kind of think of it as an old Johnny Carson, Ed McMahon thing where they used to do the dog food commercials, and I got to suck up to this sponsor all the time. All right, where were we? I think we were talking about N-scale cars. We were talking about N-scale, yeah.
And we were trying to establish why some people like one N-scale car, the other. But we'll just close up because we had already talked for quite a while. Then I got Jeremy to fill in for a minute or two.
Yep,
now
absolutely.
You're back. So now I'm going to talk about my one subject that I feel like this is probably going to be the best thing that comes from our partnership with the podcast and Rapido. I love the GE 44 tonners.
Oh yeah, they're neat. Have you seen them yet?
I have, and I saw them at Springfield.
Those are the early samples too.
I know.
We've actually Bill just got the retooled samples this week. They're not here yet.
Okay.
He's done a number of tooling upgrades and refinements, and he's got all the CN specific details on there and the pilots. They look really cool.
Really?
I'll have to show you them later.
All right, yeah, please.
But they're really neat.
Oh, now Dan Garcia's here. He wants timeout. Dan Garcia.
They're on my desk, but you have to jump over an LRC seat to get there.
I can do the LRC seat.
Yeah, they're on top of my desk.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Are you going to his house or something?
He's going to drive Peterborough
Yeah. How often do you come in?
every week.
Oh, yeah?
So I have some family here, and I just stay with them on Tuesday and Wednesday nights. So
Okay.
I'm in the office 3 days a week.
Oh, really?
But I work from home on Mondays and Fridays because I have my full office there. Because a lot of it's online anyway. And
Because of whatever it is you do here, which we haven't established.
Oh, yeah. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram.
Is that what keeps you mostly occupied, is doing that? YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram?
But it's more than that, too. I do press releases. I review all our newsletters. I work with Bobby. If you look at any photos, any model photos, most of them I take myself.
Okay.
I do that here. Photography, we have I do all our PR planning.
Right.
Anything like that.
You're kind of like a jack of all trades.
Exactly. And I still pick up the milk once in a while.
Attaboy. So here's what we'll finish with, because we've been killing a lot of time. So these GE 44 tonners.
Yep.
I was telling Josh or Dan the story. I can't remember who. But when I got to Springfield, I went over to Rapido booth on the Friday, and I saw them. Talk with somebody. On the way back, I get to one building. I think I didn't get very far, and somebody says to me, "Have you seen the Rapido GE 44 tonners?" I'm like, "Yeah, they're really cool." Don't get back to my booth. Somebody else goes, "Have you seen the GE 44 tonners?" So before I got back to my booth, I sent a text to Jason saying, "I don't know how many of these got, but I think you're going to sell a gazillion of these."
Or
2 gazillion.
Honestly, the pre-orders for that locomotive have been one of the strongest locomotive projects we've had in a long time.
Yeah.
But that's what's so cool about it. It's a nice, compact little diesel locomotive.
Oh, yeah.
It'll go anywhere. You can have it switching a single freight car on a branch line with 60-pound rail. They will go absolutely anywhere.
Well, and I think, Bachmann made one there back in the 80s, which was okay for its time. It was, mechanism was okay and everything. But now, I think people are just, like, I'm going to buy a couple of them. I don't even need them.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's not a one-size-fits-all model. You've got, like, 3 or 4 different phase variations. You've got different number boards and headlights, and you've got some with the vents on the top of the car body, different cab windows, different number boards and everything, horns. There's all kinds of different detail in there, and they have a nice heft to them too. So they will pull a pretty good sized train.
Okay, I didn't touch them. I was afraid to touch them.
Well, you can.
I'm gonna. So I'm thinking 2 gazillion. Like, yeah, you're gonna get your own ship, one whole ship for just.
We're gonna have to at one point.
I think so.
Yeah, we've got so much stuff coming in these days. We've got 5 things coming in the next week, so it's just.
Is that a problem?
It's a problem for Francis because he's running the warehouse now.
Okay.
So.
Because retailers seem to be saying that sales have slowed down somewhat.
and we've had that too. I mean, we pumped up a lot of our inventory numbers. So when we were in the middle of COVID in like 2020, 21, the market just exploded because everyone was at home.
Yeah.
And as a result, we were ordering more inventory, higher percentages of inventory,
trying to cover it.
Exactly, and which was great for about a year and a half, 2 years. And this was also when it was really slow getting anything out.
Yeah.
We found that, and they're starting to come down now, but we found that we were maintaining those higher inventory quantities, the percentages, and especially when we were getting into the summer months, it really tapers off.
Okay.
So we've started lowering the percentages. We will carry some extra inventory of a lot of products.
Right.
Like DC, it's just built to order. Whatever orders for DC we get is what we get. DCC will add a certain percentage on top of the purchase order, but we're adding less than we were because they're just.
That must just be endlessly mind-numbing. Trying to that's the thing that I constantly come back to. Is it must just be like endlessly mind-numbing trying to decide how many of a particular item to order.
It depends. You got to look at. I mean, you got to look at what the product is. Who's ordering it? I mean, it depends. There's so many factors that go into it.
Is it stress-filled trying to figure that part out? Is that the most stress-filled part of the business? Is trying to figure out how many of a particular model to order?
I think it can be, but to be honest, I leave that to the people doing the ordering. So
okay.
I don't actually do any of that myself, but I'm sure it's definitely.
And it must be talk around the office. Like, people come, they're okay. We're gonna, because trying to decide how many of the 44 tonners is going to be an entirely different ball of wax again.
Exactly, but I think in that case, and this is what we've seen for the last year or so since things have kind of settled down. We've gone to more what we used to do in terms of extra inventory. We almost always order a little bit extra inventory, but we're kind of returning to those percentages that we were at before COVID.
Right.
And that seems to be kind of evening out now.
Okay.
So that makes it, I mean...
So can I ask you this question, and don't answer it if you don't want to. But say you have a particular car.
Yep.
And you say, okay, we're going to, 5,000 are going to sell. Mm-hmm. How many extras would you order over that 5,000 to carry as inventory?
It's not necessarily as many as you'd think, because now that being said,
tell me if you don't want to.
Well, it depends on the product.
Okay.
Again, so what we'll do is we'll get to the order deadline. We'll put in the purchase order afterwards to the factory.
Right.
And I don't know what the percentage is, but
because that's not really a thing.
It could be 10%, 20%. It depends.
Yeah, it's not really a thing for Rapido. It's not really about what they're going to sell after the product. It's selling the product at the time.
Now, in a lot of cases, and this is typically what would happen before, is we would order that extra quantity from the factory, and then between the order deadline and delivery, a lot of that would get snapped up.
Right.
And we were finding that was happening when we were raising our quantities, higher percentages. It was happening less and less. We would end up with more stuff on the shelf. And if you watch some videos that we might have done 6 or 7 years ago, we do warehouse tours.
Right.
And there would be like one aisle of product, and that's it.
Yeah.
We would have, at one point, this warehouse that we're in now was half filled with like bus parts and train seats
and T-shirts.
Yeah, because we kept almost no inventory.
Yeah,
because
I remember that.
Sold out.
I remember that. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, it's just part of how the industry constantly changes the ebbs and the flow.
Exactly. And I mean, there've been obviously Rapido's grown a lot since I started 7.5 years ago. And it's been a learning experience for everybody, I think. I mean, going from a 6-man operation, 6 or 7 people, we've got
like 40 now, don't you?
Something like, we've got, and not including the UK team. I mean, we've got several project managers and people in the art department all across the U.S. now.
Really?
We've hired several people just in the last year, and it's been exciting to see everything expand, to say the least. But
and whose job is it to keep everybody organized?
That would be Mohan's job.
Okay.
Now that's in terms of a lot of organizing dealings with the factory,
right?
Keeping projects in line and stuff like that.
Right.
But I mean, it's a team. It's a team effort.
Oh, sure, yeah. That's one of the things here. I mean, that's kind of the fun thing about now the fact that Rapido sponsored podcasts, because I didn't really want a sponsor, and then Jason and I went out to lunch one day and we talked about it, and it's like it's fun to have Rapido as a sponsor.
Definitely.
It's a fun thing to do. It's I do it more as a part of the bit rather than it's a sponsor, because it's like it's so relaxing and everything, and but it's fun to be part of the whole trip.
Exactly.
And it's got to be, like we can do a longer interview another time. But I mean, for you, it's the same kind of questions I asked Darren Darnell. I mean, your head must just kind of sometimes be swimming, thinking in 8 years you've gone from being the guy that was on the reception desk.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, if you consider what I was doing before that, even with the hospital, I mean, what I was doing there and what I'm doing now is, I mean, it's a totally different world, and I couldn't have pictured myself doing this a decade ago.
And I think what people are missing about the hobby, which I think is one of the things that's going to make it continue to grow and change, is it's becoming much more mainstream.
Yeah.
Like, it's a cool thing to be doing. It's starting to become not necessarily a cool thing, but you can be a model railroader, have a few models, a little piece of track, and enjoy the hobby.
Yeah, exactly.
I think because now stuff comes out ready to run and exquisite as it does, you can put you can have a foot of track or 3 feet of track and just be as happy to play with the lights and the sounds and all that stuff.
And I mean, it's such there's something for everybody.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you see I always have this thought about you see these people, you see a lot of people complaining about, oh, it's so expensive and I'm being priced out. But there's stuff for everybody out there. There's so many different manufacturers now, and there is such a robust used market.
Yes.
You can find Athearn freight cars to this day in the kits for like $5-6.
Yeah.
Go to a show. You can come out of a show, bring $20-$30 bill, and you've got
I could see that coming.
You got a fleet of new freight cars for your lathe.
Well, my thing, I was saying to Tony Cook a couple of months ago, I'm fascinated to get to the point when you go to Springfield and there's nobody selling the blue box cars because they've all been sold and everybody owns them, and it's going to be, well, what do we practice on now? All right, we've been talking way too long. Now I need you to say Subway Chimes Go.
Subway Chimes Go.
Perfect.
How was that?
That was great. You want to do it again?
Sure. Do you want me to give it a little more charisma?
Yeah, give it a little more kick, yeah.
Subway Chimes Go.
Okay, there. I hit the button, and we can start talking. We never talked. I'm with Chris Palmieri. Palmieri. Is that right? Is that close?
Palmieri.
Palmieri. Ah, yeah. I knew that.
Yes.
Palmieri. It's actually a very romantic name.
Are you asking me out?
I've thought about it, but I know you're married. Well, it can still be a romantic name, even though if it's two guys talking.
Well, for sure, absolutely.
Palmieri. Once you said that to your future wife, that must have been it. So it was all over. She was like, done.
That was all I had to say.
Yeah, exactly. So Chris Palmieri is the owner, the proud owner and chief operating officer of homeshops.com. .net.
.net.
Was .com not available?
Was not available.
All right, well, it's the same thing. .net, .com, who cares?
Indeed.
But there's been so much going on with you, and I haven't talked to you probably for like a year or so. I thought, I've seen you at Springfield and stuff like that, but we haven't done anything on the podcast. I thought I should dial you up and see what's happening, because every time I look at the website, there's more happening.
There's plenty happening. And, man, I sure appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first thing I see, I got 1,000 questions. How many cars do you have in total that are available for sale now?
We have 4 car types. 4 orders came in. The Tangent 4750s were our first order. There's a few left of a few road names. Several are sold out. The second car that came in was our V&O tank car, and that is all sold out in all road numbers. Third car that came in was the 86-foot box car. I think we did 7 road names of that. We do have probably 18 left of most road numbers. And then we had our first Intermountain car come in, a 5277 50-foot box car, and it's just doing phenomenally in 3 road names. Several numbers are already sold out, so that's what we've got on the website.
Wow.
And yeah.
So how come, so the first car, the covered hopper was Tangent?
It was Tangent, yes.
And then the next car, which was it? The
V&O tank car, it was Tangent as well.
Okay. And what about the 86-footer?
Also Tangent.
Okay. And now this latest one is from Intermountain. Is it okay if I ask you how come it's different?
Well, I'm in a very, very unique position. I'm not actually manufacturing anything myself. I'm trying to reach out to the freelance market. And if I'm married up to just one manufacturer, that limits greatly the offerings that I can have. So
Right.
We're actually partnered, have projects in motion with 6 manufacturers right now.
Really?
And, yeah.
Wow.
So, as this develops, I get a lot of interest, and people, just build relationships. Going to the shows helps greatly. I've met now most of the manufacturers in the hobby here in the U.S., and I've had conversations with them all, and we're in various steps of adding volume to orders.
And so when did you start? I forget.
2021, April of 2021 is when I formed Home Shops.
So you've been in business now basically 2.5 years.
Correct.
And it seems to me that I'm thinking I already know the answer, but is it kind of like beyond your wildest dreams, the success of it?
Yeah, yes, it is. It's, but there was this hunch that I had that there was a market there for the freelance rolling stock and equipment. So beyond my wildest dreams is I knew it was there, right? The market was there, but it sure is time consuming, being as it's not the day job.
Yeah. Well, and what made you get the sense that the market was there?
Facebook, the Facebook groups, folks that were doing Accurel runs of custom runs of freelance cars that were growing in popularity. They were selling out faster and faster and faster, to the point that some folks were offering 100 cars and they were gone in a single day. And there's a few out there that have done that. And one in particular is Patrick Harris, and he's very prolific with Accurel freelance runs, as well as a few other manufacturers. He's done an Intermountain car or two and some Bowser cars, and he's done I think 2 Tangent cars already. So so that was kind of my tip off. And being a freelancer myself, I would look at these cars and think I sure want those cars, but maybe a little bit nicer, for my collection. And I just knew it was there. The market was there, and felt silly every time they would put those cars online and they would sell out, and I hadn't acted on that. So that was that was what spurred me to do it. And of course there was COVID. 2019, 2020, 2021, I spent a lot of time painting cars, getting back into the hobby, focusing on that. And, as I took on some projects thinking I would paint other people's freelance roads, I thought, there's got to be a better way to do that as well. So all of that happened 2019, 2020, 2021. 2021, I just said, this will be my New Year's resolution. I'm going to start Home Shops. And I put feelers out to a number of manufacturers. And to your point earlier about Tangent, starting with Tangent, well, Dave Lellback, I think he responded probably within 6 hours of when I sent him an email. And he said, sure, this is how we do it. Absolutely, we can add volume to our runs, as long as it's not a new car. If it's a rerun of something, that was one of Tangent's qualifications. So right away we placed the 4750 order, and then got into the 86-foot box cars.
And there's a Facebook website about freelance?
There's several, but one of them is just Freelance Model Railroaders, or Freelance Model Railroads.
Right.
And I think there's another one called Freelance Model Railroads in a Prototype World, or Prototype Environment. And those are the 2 primary ones. And then, of course, most of the freelance railroads have, their own Facebook page.
Yeah. Yeah, you introduced me to the Freelance Model Railroads, and it's got almost 5,000 members on the Facebook page.
It does.
And it's pretty prolific. I mean, there's guys posting on there all the time. And this hobby is like, how many times have you heard me say this hobby is like way bigger than anybody realizes?
It's very, very big, and it's very hard to quantify. But if you just look at the number of new entrants into the business over the last 10 years, that's an indicator of an industry that's not on the decline.
And So, what was that pandemic you were speaking of? I must have slept.
I've forgotten it too. Maybe they did not have it in Canada.
Yeah, that's what it was. Well, yeah, but you don't know that I'm not in Florida right now, so I could be just about anywhere.
You could be anywhere. Speaking of, you're always on Facebook showing up everywhere yourself.
Yeah, there you go. So, okay, so like the covered hopper, it's almost gone then?
Yeah, the Copper State Railroad and the Arkansas Valley were the first two to sell out, and we're just about sold out of the Greg McComas's Michigan Interstate. I think I have 9 cars left of his road name out of what we started with 260 of each road name. And Kansas Pacific, we're probably down to the last dozen. West Falls Northern, we're probably down to about 20 left. Yeah, so they're doing well. They're right where I want them to be. So that there's still inventory on the website, but I'm not sitting on a lot of stuff here in the living room and the kitchen.
Was that where you keep all of this stuff?
Actually, the loft upstairs and in an office downstairs is where it's slowly become home shops.
Right, yeah. And now you just said it takes up a lot of your time. It only takes up a lot of your time because you're so successful at it, I guess.
Yeah, there are a lot of moving pieces. I anticipated that it would be a handful, but there's a lot of moving pieces.
So it's kind of turned out that it's more of a handful than you expected?
A little bit. Not complaining, just, making observations.
But it's an interesting... I remember our discussions from before, and it's kind of like, when we first talked, you didn't even have a car on the continent that you could actually sell to people. Yeah. I think we first talked just after you'd kind of started. And now we've, in 2.5 years, we've gone from you don't even have a car to ship out. So now you're just kind of getting buried alive in cars and stuff. I mean, you have so much stuff on the website, and it looks so friggin' professional. I mean, I'm just like, and you say you got 6. You're dealing with 6 manufacturers right now.
Yeah, 6 manufacturers. As a matter of fact, today I did spend some time working on 2 different Rapido projects and another Intermountain project.
So you got Rapido, Intermountain, Tangent, Exact Rail.
Yeah, we had a couple of Exact Rail projects, and that's kind of rolled into scale trains. I met Shane Wilson at the Deschler show, and he indicated that those projects would still be on the table or on board when they produce those particular cars. So I'm hopeful that transaction will lead to a relationship with scale trains.
Right.
Atlas, we've got 3 projects in motion with Atlas. There's a Canadian company called Prairie Shadows.
Right.
And we've got 2 road names of the Trenton 5250 hopper car ordered with those guys for their second run of that. And we've got 3 road names of their Trinity 50-foot high cube box car. And that'll be part of their first run of that.
And how did you find those guys, the Prairie Shadows guys?
Someone involved in that circle reached out to me.
Really?
Yeah, someone probably will remain nameless. He's somebody a lot of folks know, and just kind of mentioned it to me. Just a Facebook Messenger conversation is how that started. And then I met that person at the St. Louis show last year in person, and that conversation just evolved to, okay, now's the time we're going to place the order for the next 5250s. Do you want in? And I said, yeah, sure. You know what? Let's do that. And one of the road names will be our first Canadian freelance railroad. There's a fellow named Stephen Reeves. He's got a Canadian Atlantic and a Canadian Atlantic and Maine subsidiary, and he's got his own freelance page as well. So we're gonna do a Canadian road name with our first Canadian manufacturer. So,
and why can't you tell me the name of the Prairie Shadows guy? Is it a secret?
Yeah, he asked to remain anonymous.
Oh, okay. Is he one?
Yeah.
Is he somebody that works there, or he's just the guy that says, "Hey, you ought to hook up with these guys"? Or
no, he contracts, if you will. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but he does stuff for multiple manufacturers. So.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Okay, so he's kind of like a guy that goes, "I'm telling you."
There's a lot of. I don't want to say freelancer because that means a whole other thing in this conversation. But there's a lot of folks out there in the model railroad business that do things for multiple companies.
I see. I didn't even hardly know that. That's why I wanted to talk to you again, because
I've learned a lot since we spoke last.
Well, yeah, and I mean you've been on the podcast 3 or 4 times, whether I interviewed you at Springfield or like this or whatever, and it's like I'm kind of don't even know what questions to ask you next, because it seems like every time I ask you, you've gone down another rabbit hole. Like you say, there's a guy that puts manufacturers together with people, and it's like that just kind of indicates how big the industry is, or if there's people that can actually even do that.
It's big.
It is. And
yeah, just looking around at Amherst, it's big. And we went to the Denver show for the first time this year, the Rocky Mountain Train show at the beginning of April, and that was big. There's people, and at all these shows, I still met people that, even though we've had all these podcasts and all the social media, people walk by the tables and they've never heard of home shops, and they walk away with a couple of cars and they've heard of home shops. So it's it just grows organically every day.
Oh yeah, I would think only 10 or 20% even knows of the podcast. Might even be like lower than that. Maybe 10% of the people in the hobby even know of the podcast. And I mean, it's because there's just so many people in it, and if they don't happen to stumble onto the website or somebody doesn't tell them about it, they're never going to find it in a million years. And it'll be the same thing with home shops. Or, I mean, I've had Shane Wilson from Scale Trains tell me, they still go to shows and people walk up to them all the time going, "Oh, I didn't even know you guys were a company," and it's like, and Jason Tron, my buddy Jason Tron from Rapido Trains, he says the same thing. I mean, it's just this constant stream of, there's new people in the hobby, but trying to take it all in is almost impossible. That's a big part of the problem. Like I'm looking at the Prairie Shadows website now, and honestly, I think I've heard the name, but I didn't even really know they hardly existed. I thought maybe they were in business, they weren't in business, blah blah blah, and now they got a beautiful website at prairieshadows.com.
Yep. Yeah, it's and I've spoken to the owner. The name of the company is probably not something he would name the company today, because it doesn't really speak to what the company does. Prairie Shadows. You hear the name in a conversation, maybe with a rail fan or a modeler, and it just doesn't sound like this is something that someplace I might buy my next race car from, right? But when now that the products are getting out there, and the first Trenton 5250 is being released as we speak, as these cars get out there, they're becoming more and more known.
I can't even keep up with the Trenton 5250 is. Let me see. I'm scrolling on your website. I'm scrolling. I
haven't advertised it on the website yet.
Oh, really? You haven't even advertised it?
A little gem nugget for you. So when we had our first podcast, because I did not have any cars in stock and on hand, I had to talk about what was coming, and I put that on the website. We pre-sold the 4750s. Have not pre-sold any more cars since then.
You don't do pre-sales anymore?
No, I'm not doing that unless I really need to. The timelines and the variance in the timelines,
You're
and
right.
the delays are so huge. I consider myself very, very fortunate that when we had our first interview, I guess I don't know, maybe late summer of 2021, I had thought the cars were going to come in, the 4750s were going to come in October or November of that year, and we launched the website in August, and I pre-sold them thinking 2-3 months, get a little cash flow, start the company. Well, the cars didn't show up until next year, April and June. So the order was split by the Chinese New Year. So now I had a lot of orders where people had ordered cars across both inbound shipments. And of course, I shipped everybody their order in 2-piece. If it did that, I wanted to get people their cars as quickly as possible. That cost a little bit, but I consider myself really fortunate. I had a lot of people say, "Hey, what's the status of my order?" And I'd let them know, as much as I knew, and nobody really, got emotional about it. But it was just an uneasy feeling. And, I mean, everybody really understood what was going on, at that time with global shipping and China shutting down factories all the time and whatnot. So, but I want to avoid being in that position as much as possible. And I look at, the reaction on social media is Athearn posts something that they're gonna make, and Intermountain posts something that they're gonna make, and Rapido posts something that they're gonna make, and I read the comments, often negative. When is, yeah, it might come out in 10 years, it might come out in 5 years, especially with Intermountain, and just the damage I think that kind of negative commenting leads to in terms of a company's reputation. That's damage control I have really no interest in participating in. So if I can, work behind the scenes with all these companies to get projects in motion, and then, when they're close to showing up, announce them, then you become the company that, when something's announced in social media, it's not, well, here's a pipe dream of something that may or may not happen in a couple of years. It's here this is coming, almost like the Dave Lellback mic drop method, where when he announces it, it's there and available.
Yeah, I like that method too. And I mean, I hope this doesn't sound like an insult.
Yeah.
because if you listen to the podcast, a lot of the times when I'm talking, it's not really coming out the way. But you sound like a much more seasoned businessman than you did when we first started.
I wouldn't say that I'm a more seasoned businessman. I would say I'm a more seasoned podcaster.
No, I don't think.
Maybe.
I don't think so. I mean, I was rooting for you right from the get go. I mean, it was kind of fun for me to start. I don't even remember how we. Maybe I don't even remember how we got together. And
I think Tony Cook facilitated that.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. And then we started talking, and I remember the first time it was kind of like, it was a cool idea and blah, blah, blah. And I kind of remember thinking to myself, boy, I hope this works out for this guy because, it's kind of an untested market other than, like you say, people producing cars for their own railroads. But that's a whole different ball of wax because if you make 100 AccuRail cars and they have your own railroad name on it and for some reason or other they don't sell, well, it's not the end of the world because you can put them on your own layout.
Right.
Whereas with this, you were going out and finding layouts and getting permission from people and yada, yada, yada. And I remember in the very first, like you said, I think we talked between the time you got them and the time you ordered. I think maybe I might have interviewed you at Springfield or something. I don't know. I forget. But I remember rooting for you thinking, I hope this works out. And now I'm kind of... I always thought you were very capable of doing it. That wasn't a surprise to me, but I'm kind of taken back at just how successful it's been.
I appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely. And I attribute the early success to that first interview. It never would have occurred to me that the initial launch sales would have been as high as they were, and I attribute that to that very first episode. And it's just it's work and it's a lot of stuff, but when you meet these modelers, the relationships that build and the excitement of those conversations, when here's something that's been going on for whatever amount of time, a freelance concept, and now we're gonna turn out this tangible car that anybody can have. There's that excitement, and it generates friendships and relationships, and it's very rewarding.
It is. That's the same thing with the podcast. I mean, you and I always have a chat, whether at a show or like I had no qualms about calling you up and saying, "Hey, Chris, you want to come back on the show?" Yada yada yada, and but I got to tell you, I'm pretty impressed with your success. And maybe what I'm hearing in your voice is more confidence. Maybe that's what I'm hearing in your voice is more confidence. And it's like I'm already enjoying the conversation because like not only has your idea come to fruition, but it would appear that your idea is a home run. And it's pretty neat. It's pretty darn neat, to be honest with you.
Well, it's nice to hear your reflection on that. It's nice to hear. So I appreciate that.
So these cars for the Crescent City Model Railroad Club, which is in New Orleans, and that's our friend. Oh my goodness, he's going to be listening to this, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, and I like talking to him.
Oh, you've got Greg Avenil.
Yeah, Greg.
Ken Mason. Yeah,
Greg. Yeah, because he was the president at some point. Maybe he still is of the club. And
I think he still is.
I got to get him back on the Greg. I got to get you back on the podcast. Get an update, buddy. Did these cars sell pretty good? The Crescent Lines cars?
Probably 3/4 of the way. They sold pretty quick, and I knew with the 86-foot box cars that was going to be a risky car because so many people, and I hear it at every show. This car is just too big to put on my layout.
Right.
But really, really pleased with the initial sales, and I think we will definitely do a second run, with 4 more names at some point.
Really?
In time.
Eh? Wow.
Yeah, I do.
And do you think some people buy the cars that are just? I remember I was interviewing you at Springfield. Must have been a couple of years ago, and you may not remember. Yeah. You may not remember this, but we were talking. I don't even remember if we were interviewing or not. But this guy comes up and starts telling us about all the stuff he had, and he had all this stuff. He had a 10x10 room full of models. We hadn't built a layout yet, but he was collecting everything and yada, yada, yada. And I remember standing there thinking, oh my God, like you might want to start building a layout there, bud.
Well, as long as they're buying, I'm happy.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. And I think a lot of guys, that's a big thing for micro trains, I think it is. I'm sorry, Kelly. I know you're listening, Kelly. I'm sorry if I'm not getting it right. Is it microtrains? Yeah, it's microtrains. I know a big part of their market is people that collect N scale cars. So I wouldn't be that shocked if a big part of your market turns out to be people that just want to have the cars. Man, these 86 footers. I mean, you got a lot of cool names, Arkansas Valley and how do you determine whose layout you're gonna do next? Like, do you since this has happened, do you have people approaching you say, would you do my layout?
Oh yeah. I think I've probably gotten 3 emails this week from folks that I had not heard of saying, how do I go about, getting a car done? And so, I've got kind of a master list of people that have reached out to me that I look at what they've presented and think this looks like something that I think people will buy or it is not. And then I try to get a feel for what their era and their equipment rosters would look like. That's one of the first questions I ask folks is, do you have an equipment roster? So that when company A or manufacturer B comes up to me and says, all right, Home Shops, we're going to do this car next, in my mind, there are, good fits. And then I'll reach out to those modelers, and say, hey, this car is up. I think it might be a good fit for your railroad. What do you think? And I've had people say, no, that car is not the right one for this railroad. And I've had people say, absolutely, let's do it. And we'll go ahead and do it.
I think I was one of those people that said, I think you offered to do a 50-foot car or something. And I said, no, thanks. I'll wait for a 40-foot car.
Yeah. And, that's circle back. I think that was almost a whole episode, I think we did, talking about, I'd sent you a list of questions.
That's right. Yeah. You wanted me to start that's right. You wanted me to start a Facebook page and Bruce kept saying, no, that ain't going to happen. But
where is that Facebook page? Let me look for it. Allegheny and Lackawanna Southern.
There is none.
Does not compute. The computer says.
Yeah, I got plenty to do right here, buddy. There you go. Here's the problem. I got enough to do trying to keep up with you rather than even.
Yeah, you got your hands full there, buddy.
Yeah. So okay.
So we had that. I want to mention this. We had that episode where that interview where we talked about doing an ALS 40-foot box car with tangent. The one with the wide door, they had come out with 4 road names, and the information I had was that was probably set to run in another year, which is not a long time in this business. Well, that's since been pushed back indefinitely on Tangent's radar, right? So these things are. The little bits of planning that are out of my control. But, to your point, when Tangent comes and says, all right, this 40-foot box car is back on, it's now, up again. I know right away I'm going to reach out to Lionel Strang and see if he still wants to do the NLS car. There's some folks involved with Jack Ozanich, the late Jack Ozanich's Atlantic and Great Eastern. And
that'd be a great car. That would be a great
They have actually painted up a couple of those Tangent cars and given them to me for use, in the ambassador fleet, and that'll be right there side by side when that car comes up, right? So that's how these orders get put together. And it's also a financing thing. Did I just put 3 orders together this month? Maybe this next one will be a little smaller than otherwise.
Right? Yeah. And that would be cool to be on the same order as Jack Ozanich, because I have a soft spot for Jack Ozanich. I've told this story many times, but I love Jack. I had a great relationship with him. Got to operate his layout a few times, and he loved to chew guys out. And the problem was, every time Jack started chewing me out, I'd start giggling, and he'd get madder and madder and chew me out even more. But I saved the day one day because he couldn't get his tractor started, and I worked on a farm as a teenager, and was able to fix his tractor. And from that point on, I was like, I was set, buddy. He could scream, he could scream at me for an hour, and he wouldn't, and I'd just sit there. I love the guy. So you must have a kind of a, you must have learned now, how many railroads all told have you made cars for that are for sale or were for sale?
Oh, I would say probably close to 40.
40?
I would say so.
You're out of control.
I've been accused of that.
You're completely out of control. Man, what a good idea I had contacting you. So you must have some sort of either written set of parameters or a set of parameters in your head that would make a car qualify to be one of the ones that you'd make a model of. Yeah,
I would say that set of parameters is getting modified and refined with each experience. But I do have on the website a frequently asked questions page, FAQ page, and I think line item or question number 5 on there kind of addresses what I'm generally looking for, so that when people seem to come out of left field with the first question, I'll direct them there first, because it'll answer most of their questions.
Oh, okay. Look at that.
I'm a huge fan of folks that are championing their own railroad. With social media is free. So if you've got a great model railroad concept and you're actually taking the time to paint some equipment and post pictures of it and generate a following, then that means a lot, because don't have $1 million marketing budget, right? So, but if somebody comes to me with a car and I look for it, and there's zero content online, and I look at the Facebook groups, well, now not only do they want me to invest and develop this car for them, but they want me to develop, I guess, the market for it as well. And that's a big red flag. Even though when I look for that Allegheny and Lackawanna Southern, nothing comes out, I do know that there were many decades that it was in print, in magazines. So that means a lot, but that's a huge deal. And I'll give you an example of that. This last the first Intermountain car we had, I just did 3 road names, kind of a test with them. I did Tony Kester's Allegheny Midland, which of course, plenty of exposure. I did Tim Garland's Seaboard Central, plenty of exposure, because he's got a YouTube channel with, I think, over 7,000 followers, plus a Facebook group. And I did Kevin Kletke's Washington Northern, and he's had YouTube videos that are, been up for a decade or so, generating hits and interest. His videos were some of the first ones I saw that I saw a freelance concept that just made me think, wow, that's cool, right? So those are the first 3 road names that I did with Intermountain with that box car. And I had, whenever I get a new car in, I send the road owner a complimentary set, and I sent Tim Garland, I sent all 3 road owners their set, but I sent Tim Garland of the Seaboard Central a set of Seaboard Central box cars. And that Friday, I'd filled all my orders. I went to bed, so I had nothing in queue. And I wake up Saturday morning and I look at my, I've got the Shopify app on my phone, and it tells me how many sales I've got. And there's 7 sales and 8 sales and 9 sales. And I'm thinking, all right, something's up. It doesn't usually ping quite this fast. So I, go to social media and I see that Tim Garland had posted a video of the cars on his YouTube channel and then linked it to Facebook.
Wow.
Well, that weekend, Lionel, I had 113 sales.
Holy mackerel.
Not cars sold, but individual orders just that weekend. And, that kind of sales was driven by Tim Garland's YouTube post.
Right, yeah.
So that's, that's my goal now is to have one Tim Garland in every release.
Wow. There you go. And this Washington Northern, what did you say the fella's name was? Kevin Clicky. Oh, where are you? Did I leave or did you leave? Somebody left. We're 35 minutes in. And now there's no noise. It's just me. Well, now what do we do?
I think I lost you, Lionel. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I was just talking to myself, and I was trying to be entertaining. And that's a stretch right there, let me tell you. Are you still there? Hello? Uh-oh. I hear noise. We had him back for a minute, now he's gone again. The Washington Northern Freelance Model Railroad got our attention many years ago when its creator, Kevin Kletke, Klettke, began posting content on YouTube. What really appealed to us was the attention to detail and his amazing ability to capture the flavor of the Pacific Northwest region that the railroad served. One could view this railroad and quickly become immersed in the world he had created. I hear noise. I'm sure everybody else hears noise. I'm going to go to these frequently asked questions. Holy mackerel. Like, where are the questions now? All right. Question 1. What is a freelance model railroad? Man, if you ever want to have that answer. There's this stuff is so well written. So there's an explanation. A freelance model railroad, sometimes referred to a proto-freelance model railroad, as a model railroad that represents a railroad that does not exist in the prototype world. Growing in popularity, many talented model railroads have decided to create their own railroad and accompanying narrative to model. All right. I'm taking a pause now. We're going for elevator music as we wait for Chris Palmieri.
I can hear you now. All right. That was weird.
Yeah, I think I know what the problem was, but I'm not telling you.
All right. Well, fair enough. I was telling a story and I'm like, I thought he might have responded or said something.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But you know what? We had elevator music. I commented on your question and answer page. Well, so we had some, and we've also determined beyond a shadow of a doubt that the podcast with just me by myself would be endlessly boring.
Endlessly boring.
Endlessly boring with just me.
I'm going to write that down. I might put that on the side of a freight car. Endlessly boring.
Yeah, there you go.
Is that better or worse than marginally adequate?
I think. See, I don't even like to do introductions when we play this podcast. You'll either be part of be like part 2 of an all-star variety hour because I've got a little thing with Jordan Smith from Rapido Trains that I need to plug in somewhere. So it might be part 2 of an all-star variety hour, and I won't even do the intros and the outros by myself because I am just by myself. I'm pathetically boring. It's ugly. You don't want to be part of that.
Well, I'm glad to help you out with that little problem there, Lionel.
Thanks. What were we talking about?
Well, we were talking about the Intermountain boxcars and success that I had with Tim Garland's Seaboard Central.
Right. Yes. And then I asked you about Kevin Kletke, and because I was going to ask you to spell the name in that, and then while you were gone, I went to the Washington Northern cars, and I saw that's the part of the thing that I'm very impressed with my buddy Ron Kleiss, and he has Mind Mount Models, which is a company that produces structures, and his website is spectacular. And that's one of the things about your website is really, really well done and really, really professional. I think you need to give I think a big part of this whole experience is you need to give yourself a real tip of the hat for your ability to do this because, so I go to the Washington Northern website and I basically read everybody the paragraph and, there's so much you have there. It's very, very, very good. I'm very excited for you.
Well, I appreciate that. My father actually had a website back before websites were popular for Louisiana railroading. So I grew up with him designing this website. The server that site was hosted on was destroyed in Hurricane Katrina, and he never did rebuild it. But I've had a lot of in-house or someone in the house, for many years doing a website. So a lot of the design ideas I learned from my dad, and he has authored some of the blog posts on the Home Shops website.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh, cool. So is your dad a model railroader or a rail fan?
Yes and yes, though, he's retired now and doesn't get out or do too much anymore. But growing up, he was an avid rail fan. His nickname was Dr. Diesel because if there was anybody had any question about any locomotive, he had the answer. He had a whole system of serial numbers, in file cabinets, and he just lived and breathed that stuff. And he was a member of the Model Club, the Crescent City Model Railroad Club, back when I was young. So, before I was tall enough to get above the benchwork and see trains, I was at the Model Club and exposed to that freelance model railroad at a very young age. And so all that experience rolls into what we're doing today.
I bet your dad's name was Michael.
Indeed, it was.
I see. I found one of his blog posts, Dr. Diesel. I love that.
That was his nickname. Yes.
I'm going to put that as the subtitle for the cover of this. My dad was Dr. Diesel. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. See how you and I.
If we were in a group and somebody had a question about some locomotive they saw, it would be, well, ask Dr. Diesel. He'll know. And sure enough, there was not a whole. He lived and breathed Extra 2200 South, and all the publications that went into more detail than just the trains magazines.
That is so cool. I love this podcast, and I love finding out stuff like that. If I tell you something, would you promise not to be mad at me and it won't ruin our relationship?
Okay, I promise.
Okay. I think I hit the mute button on my microphone, and that's why you couldn't hear me.
Fair enough.
So not only have we found out how cool your whole thing is, we've also found out that I'm basically dumber than a stick of butter.
You know what? Things happen.
You Dr. Diesel. Your dad was Dr. Diesel. I love that. That is so cool.
That was his nickname.
That is so cool. You're a very interesting guy. And I wanted to, let's not forget, you work for a major railroad, and you were going to tell us all about your job tonight.
Well, I can, tell you what I do if you like, but I can't tell you any trade secrets.
I know. I remember that from the first time I ever interviewed you. You were like, can't talk about that. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, but are you a dispatcher for one of the railroads?
I'm a train dispatcher for BNSF.
Wow, that's cool. How's that going?
I just got my 25th year, so I got my 5th week of vacation.
Wow.
So it's very, very cool.
And your 5th week of vacation is used up packing up orders for home shops.
It's used going to shows, and doing other stuff. Yeah, absolutely. It's not enough time.
Did you go to the St. Louis RPM?
No, I traded the St. Louis RPM for the Spring Creek show in Deschler this year.
And are you glad you went to the Spring Creek show?
Yes, I am. I kind of had it in my mind that it would be a huge win for Spring Creek to carry Home Shops because they go to every show, and they bought every piece of inventory that I brought up to Deschler, and they are now carrying Home Shops. So that was definitely a good move.
Wow, you're like, oh my goodness gracious, the more I'm talking to you here, the more excited I get. So is that a thing that your cars are available at certain hobby shops or just Spring Creek?
There's just a handful of hobby shops, maybe just 3 hobby shops. And at the Denver show, I met some folks that basically do the model train circuit on the West Coast, called Model Train Supply, I think it is. And they were set up right across from Home Shops and Macrail. So we're staring at each other for 2 days at Denver, and at the end they're like, okay, we want to fill up all these empty crates so that we're stocked for the next show. What have you got for me? And I think they bought about 60 cars. Yeah, so I don't think Spring Creek does a whole lot of West Coast shows, but they do a lot of everything else. So that gives me some good exposure, I think.
This is just kind of blowing my socks off, that to be.
In fact, I zoomed in on Spring Creek's post. When people set up at shows, they all post a picture of their setup online, and I looked at the Spring Creek their photographs of their setup at the St. Louis show, and plainly visible were a bunch of Home Shops cars, and I thought, well, bingo. So I am at St. Louis, even though I'm not there. So perfect.
Right? Yeah. While we were off the air, or while it was just me, and I was boring people to death, I talked about how when I interviewed Alan Keller, I was just basically a complete goober, because all I could keep saying was, "You're Alan Keller," and I feel kind of like I'm being a complete goober with you, because I'm so excited about how well this has gone for you. I mean, you said you had 40 cars so far.
About 40 road names, yeah.
40 road names.
I think so, yeah.
That's not in
counting all the cars that I expect to be in this year for sure. I think we'll have 4 orders. I'll have 4 shipments in before December if everything goes right.
So tell me the story of the Allegheny Midland car. Like, how did that come about?
Let's see here. Well, Intermountain, at the time I placed that order, their minimum order quantity was 300 cars per road name, which was much, much more than I was doing with Tangent, or had to do with Tangent. And so I thought, all right, if I'm gonna test the waters with 300 cars of a road name, I need some big names, or some people with social media presence. And I've got a couple. Fox Valley Models did an AM car and a V&O box car maybe 10, 11, 12 years ago. And I managed to get, I think, 2 of each in my own personal collection, but they're impossible to find. And I thought, that's a box car I see all the time, people posting. If you got, on the buy, sell, trade Facebook groups, if you got, this AM box car. And I had done the V&O car, the V&O tank car. And I thought it's time to spread the Appalachian Lines love a little bit, and I just reached out to Tony Kester, and actually Tony and myself and Brad McClelland and Alan McClelland and Steve King, we developed a whole series of Tangent PS 4427 hoppers that are shelved now until the second run of that car, or the next run of that car. Because there just wasn't enough room for all the cars we wanted to do. So that whole conversation really developed my relationship with Tony Kester. So now I just email him and, hey, this car is up. You think it'd be a good A&M car? And he'll either say yeah or no, and he'll even suggest the car numbers for it. And I emailed him today about an Intermountain car that we're working on, and he responded within like an hour and gave the thumbs up. And it's just real easy to work with Tony. He's a good egg.
Yeah, we had him on the pod. We did 6 episodes with him. Hey,
6 episodes.
Yeah, who you got to reach out to is a fellow named Ken McQuarrie. We're in the process of interviewing him right now. We're at 3 episodes. He has what unofficially we think is the largest private home model railroad in the world.
Really?
Certainly in North America. And he has no real presence on the internet other than there's some YouTube videos, but his layout is, I think the original building is 3,200 square feet, and then he added like a 20 by 30 foot extension onto it. Wow. and it's like 3 levels, and he's been building it for like 20 years, and that's all he does. He's been retired from the family business since the mid 90s or the late 90s, and that's all he does is this railroad. And it takes 30 to 40 guys to operate it, or 30 guys to operate it, and he operates once a month, and he's in Pennsylvania, and it's like now he's modeling the Buffalo line between Harrisburg and Buffalo. So that's something you might think about. And I understand. Yeah. I understand you've been talking to Uncle Dave Abelese too.
I have about several projects.
Several.
Well, yeah.
Holy mackerel! And what kind of? Can you give us any kind of a hint about what's happening there? I mean, I could.
Well, I think at some point we're going to come up with an Onondaga cutoff car.
Right.
And he's got a couple of logo ideas for it. Conrail, which of course is the prototype version of his proto freelance world there. They came up with a number of logos that were unique to specific shops and just applied to one or two pieces of equipment. And he wants to do something along those lines. So when the right car comes along, we'll do that. And the second arrival that we're going to have coming up is the Tangent Mini High-Q box car.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. We've got 6 road names of that coming up. And one of them is a freelance railroad known as the Suffern Hoboken Interstate Transfer.
Oh, yeah,
or
right.
Shit Lines for short.
Yeah. Did you have any qualms about doing that one?
Ish. At first, I was really turned off by it. I saw it and I didn't understand it and I didn't get the humor behind it, and it didn't really fit. And then I'm watching one of Uncle Dave's videos, his Facebook Lives, and here comes a Conrail train rolling by, and there's, I think, 2 of those cars in the train. And I thought, well, if Uncle Dave is giving it credence, and maybe there's a little bit more to the story. And there's a fellow named John Bazuin who now has retired and lives in Florida, and he's very good friends with a fellow named Lenny Harlows, who is part of Dave Abelese's operating crew family. Right. There.
Right.
And so there's kind of a connection. And as I got into it, there is actually a Facebook page, not a whole lot of content, but there's some history there. And John Bazuin has his own company called Southern Tier Model Works, and there's a Facebook page there where he custom paints a lot of stuff, including a lot of his freelance cars for that railroad. And as I start to watch this content and watch how much the cars sell for, and oh, by the way, when I was at St. Louis last year, 3 or 4 people were like, when are you going to do one of John's cars? And when I was at Springfield, when are you going to do one of John's cars? I heard that quite a bit. I even heard it in Denver, right? So when Dave Lelbach reached out now over a year ago and said, hey, we're going to do the Mini High Cube. Are you interested? That's the car that I really wasn't familiar with because it was very short-lived. This particular car was only produced in a 3-month span, and they were produced for appliances, and they were quickly replaced with much larger cars. So they didn't really exist on the railroading landscape for very long. So I'm kind of scouring, my connections in Facebook and thinking of what would be a good candidate for this car. And one of John's cars came up in the feed, and I looked at it and I just kind of got a grin. And I said, if I can pull off a Tangent car, factory painted for this freelance, that would be pretty cool, because a lot of people have asked for it. And so I gave Dave Lelbach, I responded in email. I said, okay, I'm interested in doing 6 road names. Here's the list of the 6 railroads. And I had John's freelance there as number 5. And I said, now, before this goes any further, let's talk about number 5. Make sure there's not any issues here, because, obviously Tangent's name is on board with it. And Dave Lelbach knows John Bazuin, and it's really a tight-knit community. And about 3 days of silence went by, and then I get a text message from Dave Lelbach, and it simply said, okay, let's do John shit. And I thought, cool, we're gonna do the car. And you know what I've learned is, yeah, we all take what we do very, very seriously, but it needs to be tempered with a little bit of, I don't know if it's humor or humility, or, you know what, let's not take it so serious that it escalates to, a point where it's no longer fun, right? So given the history there, given that a lot of people, especially in the Northeast, know this railroad, it's not something that somebody just put pen to paper to and created. I mean, this has been around for a while. I thought let's pay homage to it. John's I think he's 80 years old. Let's get a car out there in the old man's hands, while we can. And this was a case of, he's very, very meticulous, very particular about the design of the cars. And when I said, have you got a vector file for the logo, he said, what is that?
Yeah.
So all of his decals were things that he had actually produced himself on technology and machines that no longer existed, and he was down to his last 10 sets of decals. And I thought, all right, well, let's play ball. So I actually connected him with I didn't connect him with, but I work a lot with Jim Abbott of Highball Graphics Decals. And Jim, I mailed Jim, I think, a hard copy set of John's decals. And he drew them digitally in a vector format. And John approved. This is exactly right. Because he had gone to some other companies, John Bazoon had, to try and have newer decals and decal files made, and the font, it's not like you have Arial font or whatever. It's something that was drawn very specific for that railroad, and he never was satisfied with the way anybody had recreated it. But what Jim Abbott did met his standards, and then that same file went to Tangent and was used by Dan Kohlberg to put the car together. So that's on the water, and was hoping those cars would be in this month in time for the NMRA National Train Show here in Grapevine, Texas, but it's not going to they're not quite going to make it in time for that.
Oh, yeah, right. The big Dallas NMRA show. This is probably on after Dallas, but
I would expect it would be on after, yeah.
Or maybe you can find out and let me know. So yeah, I guess you're going to be at that train show, eh? You probably got yourself a booth and everything.
Yeah, I've got a booth Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll be at the National Train Show here in Grapevine, Texas.
And do you have help at these shows when you're doing it, or do you do it? Or you man the table yourself, or?
As home shops, generally, it's just me.
Okay.
Though my neighbor and your fellow guest, practically neighbor, Greg McComas and his Macrail, we tend to go to the same shows for the most part, and we always set up next to each other.
Okay.
So, if I need to take a break or in a conversation, he can keep his eye on the inventory and vice versa. So,
right.
Yeah.
When you went to Deschler, was it like you went there and did you sell? Of course, you sold all your cars to Spring Creek, but
yeah.
I mean, that's a show that people need to understand. That's in the middle of nowhere. It's literally in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's literally in the middle of nowhere.
If you go 27 miles north, you're in Strang, Nebraska, which is even closer to the middle of nowhere. And you can have a Strang burger when you're there at Bubba's old time cafe.
I thought about driving to Strang and having a Strang burger just because there's so little to eat or do around there.
I know. It is crazy. And what were the crowds like there this year?
I don't know what the numbers were, but it was certainly more than I would expect to accumulate in Deschler, Nebraska.
What's your favorite show of the year? Is it Springfield? Is that the one that you look forward to, or how many shows are you doing a year now?
4-ish, 3, 4.
And I'm assuming Spring Creek's always definitely on the calendar.
Well, yeah, I'm now. They're a every other year kind of show. So this was the first one, and they won't. Yeah, they do it every other year. So they didn't have one last year. They won't have one next year.
I meant to say Springfield.
Oh, Springfield. Yeah, that's a good show. It's a good show, obviously, because of the volume of people there, but also, the exposure. Every manufacturer is there. So, but they're kind of all, the same in terms of it doesn't really. I don't get to soak in the show. You know,
Yeah.
I don't get to
No
I don't get to
kidding.
roam the 5 buildings. I think this year I saw you fly by once following Michelle there somewhere, and that was about the extent of, I didn't have time to swing by and chat, because there's always a line of people wanting to tell you about their railroad or wanting to learn about what you've got, and that's what it's all about, is having conversations with modelers. And Denver was the same way. Spring Creek was the same way. You just have one conversation after the other, and you learn a lot. You learn what people want, and people learn what you got. So that's what it's all about. And those conversations are the same regardless of which show you're at. So as long as those conversations are taking place, it's a good show.
And that must have changed, because probably now. I mean, you're probably a lot busier at your booth, not necessarily selling cars, but you're probably busier with people coming up with ideas or wanting to talk and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's probably a lot different than your first show.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Especially now that, there's a couple years worth of home shop social media out there. People have, there are more people who have a better feel for what it is that we do before the introduction. And, some folks come up with a binder and, printed photographs of their stuff. And,
wow.
It's really neat.
Yeah, now you got people trying to sell their layout to you to get you to do it.
Yep.
What a neat idea. Huh. And what's I love these. And I see in your merch, you got a merch section, and you got like the Virginia and Atlantic collection. You got the Crescent Lines collection, Copper State Railway. So how do you decide which railways you're going to have a collection for?
Well, it was easier to decide to put that merch together when I wasn't as busy. But, probably for each one of those collections, I put 4 or 5 hours of time into designing all the merch. It's all, print on demand. So there's no inventory cost. But, there's some neat stuff there. And,
oh, yeah.
The mugs are awesome. The T-shirts are awesome. The hats are awesome. So some folks kind of have indicated they'd send me some designs, and it's really easy to plug that stuff in. It's amazing what these print-on-demand companies can put together and crank out.
And you just have to be so careful, because for a while there, I was doing print-on-demand, and then I did a couple of shirts from Teespring, and they were just absolute crap. The quality of this shirt was horrible, and so I went away from them, and that's when I turned it all over to Stephen Atwell there at Midwest Model Railroad. Now there's a hobby shop that should be selling your stuff, is Midwest Model Railroad.
Well, I might be interested.
Yeah, I'll get Stephen Atwell. I'll get you two guys together and go from there. I just can't get over it. Like, honestly, I got to be completely honest with you. I haven't looked at your website for a few months, and it just seems like it seems like your company's like a chia pet. You added water to it. And the thing just grew like I cannot get over how much it has grown in 2.5 years. I don't think anybody could have imagined that. Like, you couldn't have imagined it was going to be this successful.
Nope, I was absolutely prepared for 2 years to pass, and I'd have only sold 10 of each road name, and I'd be stuck with everything, and that's not what happened. So
So other than finding other railroads to do in the future, do you have anything else in the future that's coming, or it's still you're treading water as fast as you can, trying to keep up with the making of the freight cars and the shipping of them out and etc.?
Oh,
there is, but you don't want to tell me.
No, but I couldn't tell if you were leaning towards something in particular. We're going to do our first locomotive. We're going to do that.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Is that should I have known that somehow?
No, I've not announced it anywhere.
Oh, okay. Well, I did not know about that. That's pretty exciting. That's really exciting.
Yeah. We're going to do working with Brad McClelland. And
really?
Rapido. We're going to do a V&O C30-7.
Holy mackerel. How exciting is that?
It's really exciting. Very, very cool. There is a Facebook page, the V&O Historical Society. They've got their own Facebook page. I don't know, maybe about 2,400 members, but it's pretty active. And Brad McClelland moderates it, and he posts regularly. And there's documents, files under that section, a Facebook pages and groups. You can post documents, and there's a couple of documents that are the V&O roster, as best as folks have been able to put together from what's been published. And there are 16 C30-7s numbered V&O 3080 through 3095, and as far as I can tell, no one's ever modeled one. So this will be a first and a new kind of thing out to a new locomotive for the V&O as far as the modeling world. Intermountain has done a couple of V&O locomotives in HO scale. They did the SD40-2. I don't know, maybe that's 10, 12 years old, and I have not been able to find one. I'd like to get my hands on one. And if you peruse the Home Shops page, you'll see some videos of a couple of V&O SD40s. I'm trying to relaunch the Ambassador fleet. When we first started the company, well ahead of the arrival of the first cars, I painted maybe 24 hoppers up, in the schemes that were coming, and sent them to a lot of railroads to get media generated, and it really worked well for us. But as things got busier and cars actually started coming in, I got away from that, and I decided I want to kind of rebrand that as the Ambassador Fleet 2.0, and this time with locomotives. So I had a couple of SD40s, these Athearn ready to run CSX SD40s. I bought a bunch of them and had two of them professionally painted in V&O. And they've been to a couple of railroads now, and I'd like to get a consist for each railroad that we do, so that I can send a train to somebody's layout and have a video taken. And that's a little bit of an undertaking, but these C30s will complement the SD40-2s that Intermountain has done in the past, and these SD40s and maybe some more projects that are in the works nicely.
Wow. Locomotives. Holy mackerel. I found the V&O Historical Society on Facebook, on which I'm apparently already have joined it. And I'm staring at across the room from where I'm sitting, across the studio from where I'm sitting. I'm looking at my membership card. I'm member number 91. I'm a charter member of the V&O Historical Society. I don't know if it's still going, but I'm a charter member when they did.
Nice.
Yeah. V&O is...
Well,
if somebody asks me what my favorite railroad is, it's the V&O. Not that includes prototype, model, anything. My favorite railroad all time is V&O. Well,
if you go to the files tab on the V&O Historical Society page, the fourth file that's there is V&O all-time diesel roster, page 4, and it's if you go to the bottom and download that Word document, it's a photograph of a roster that was printed, published, and it kind of breaks down the roster in 4 years. There's a 1958, 68, 75, and 1996, and we'd eventually like to have a couple of consists appropriate for each of those 4 eras that we can use as part of the Ambassador Fleet 2.0.
Yeah. Holy mac!
And you'll see, there's C30-7, 16 of them in 1996, numbered 3080 through 3095. And I'm having some conversations with Brad, because he's given a lot of credit, with Brad McClellan. He's given a lot of credit for kind of revamping the locomotive roster, the renumbering. You'll notice there's a column on the left, original locomotive numbers, and they're all 3-digit numbers. And then with the Appalachian Lines merger, they kind of adopted a number series where the locomotives are basically horsepower based. So your 3,000 horsepower locomotives are in the 3,000 series. And Brad was involved in that quite a bit. And that's written about several locations, and he'll talk about it. And I'm having a conversation with him right now about these C30-7s, because when I look at it, the roster seems extremely small for what the V&O would be. And before I invest in a couple of hundred locomotives, I want to make sure the numbers are really really what they should be. And so we're kind of talking about that before we nail down this number. But it's really a fun conversation to have, you know. And when I first started the conversation with him, you know, he said, well, what exactly do you mean? And I said, well, you know, tell me let's start with your primary train on the V&O. What was that train? And he says, well, it was number 97 and 98. You know, it's actually a run-through train. It comes from St. Louis and goes all the way to Potomac Yard. And there's an advanced section that's intermodal, and there's the manifest section. And I said, okay, well, you don't have enough locomotives to run that train. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, okay, well, let's start with Monday. And, you know, this train will probably have 3 or 4 locomotives leaving St. Louis. And it's probably more than a 48-hour run to get to Potomac Yard, right? And he said, well, yeah. And I said, and so Monday's going to launch a train with 4 locomotives, and then Tuesday comes along and it's going to launch a train with 4 locomotives, and then Wednesday comes along and it's going to launch a train with 4 locomotives. And by the way, you said you have an advanced section. That's the intermodal equipment. And we haven't started talking about the train coming the other way, right? And if you look at this 1996 column, there's 10 SD40s, 10 GP38s, 14 SD40-2s, and 16 C30s, and that's really about it as far as big locomotives. And I said, I don't know that you've got enough locomotives on this roster to run 97, 98, right? And he goes, where were you when I was redesigning this roster, right? And I said, well, I was learning a little bit about railroading. So, you know, it's kind of fun, you know, for a small railroad to say I'm going to have a locomotive roster that's, you know, horsepower based, and a lot of railroads have done that over the time, but it's real fine and dandy until you get to the 3,000 horsepower locomotives, because, you know, your Jeep 40s, your Jeep 40-2s, SD40s, SD40-2s, C30s, they're all in there. And that's kind of what everything goes to, right? So these SD40M-2s that I have custom painted, you know, I talked to Brad and I said, looking at this roster, a lot of railroads in the 90s had these SD40s rebuilt by Morrison Knudsen or EMD or wherever. The SP did it, the KCS did it, the CSX did it, and Athearn just released a run of those engines for the prototype railroads. I said, would it be plausible, looking at this roster, that the V&O would have had those in the 90s? And he said, without hesitation, yeah, that would have been a perfect fit. So we put them in the 3100s, you know, 30 of them, penciled them into the roster right on top of the 3000s. And it's really an interesting 3000 series collection on the V&O roster, right? The 3050 through the 3059 are SD40s non-2s. And then on top of that, right under it, 3030 through 3035 are GP40-2s.
You're a freaking encyclopedia of information.
Well, my dad was Dr. Diesel, right?
Yeah, so, your dad was Dr. Diesel.
Right. So there's that, right? So, you know, the SD40 M-2s that I had custom painted, you know, that are running around in the 3100 series numbers, that was, you know, they are there by design because of that conversation. And, you know, the next time this roster is revisited, it'll be published with those included, right? Who knows? Maybe Athearn will run them. You just never know.
Yeah. Well, I got a question for you. And this is my last question. Is there anything you wanted to talk?
I don't believe it.
Yeah. Is there anything you wanted to talk about that we haven't covered yet?
Oh, let's see. Locomotives coming. Lots of cars coming. Class 1 depressed center flat cars, Class 1 model works. Those will be in hopefully within a week.
Okay, you're dealing with model works as well. So what are the 6 companies? We got Rapido, Scale Trains, Rapido, Exact Rail, Intermountain, Tangent, Model Works. What's the 6th one?
Atlas.
Atlas, right.
And Prairie Shadows. Yeah, Atlas. Atlas, we're doing our first O-scale car with Atlas.
Wow, that'll be cool. I wonder if that'll sell. Be interesting to see if that'll sell. Now, my question was, do you think being a prototype railroader, a full-scale, a 1-to-1 railroader, helps you with this business?
I think that it does. Yeah, absolutely.
And I got a second question. You were right. That wasn't my only question. It feels to me like there's way more prototype model railroaders that are interested in model railroading. Now, I know the story. I've heard it from everybody that, okay, years ago it wasn't cool to say you were a model railroader. nowadays it's more cool. You can say it. But it also seems to me, aside from that there just seems to be way more one-to-one full-size railroaders that are into model railroading.
There's a ton. Tim Garland of the Seaboard Central, his day job, he's a locomotive engineer for the NS.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. He's been, obviously, I know you listen to all the podcasts and some of them twice. And
indeed.
But Tim Garland's been on the podcast a couple of times. He's a very interesting guy. Hi, Tim. If you're listening to this, Tim. Hi, Tim. How you doing, buddy? All right, that's it. We're done. We're out of time. We're out of network time. If I'm gonna save any time for Jordan Smith's layout or interview, I got to stop now.
Well, I appreciate the update, Lionel.
I appreciate your excitement in the hobby. Your excitement for the hobby. You got to send me the artwork for your new logo, and we'll make that into a sticker and send it out to folks.
I do need to have that done. I think you mentioned that before. I've got that on a list here.
Oh yeah, you probably have a long list.
Indeed, it's multiple lists.
And you seem like you're way more organized than me. I thought all I thought was going to be, me sitting here in my t-shirt and jeans just talking to people, and now I got like this list of stuff I got to do. I didn't think anybody was going to listen.
Well, people are listening, Lionel.
I know they are. That's the conversation. That's how I ended up with Rapido Trains as my sole sponsor. The AML Nation was.
I saw the video with the bus and the bag of potato chips. That's genius.
Yeah, people
that
like
was
that.
A good video.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't realize he was making a video. I just happened to stumble in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's do this again in like a few months, like 6 months or something from now, because I think we're going to need to semi-regularly keep up. Or of course, by 6 months we'll have Springfield will have come and gone. Maybe I'm the same as you, man. I go to Springfield and I used to walk around, and the last 2 or 3 or 4 years since I had the podcast, doing it with the podcast, it's like I don't have any time to do anything. One year I never got out of the Better Living Center.
Yep. Nope. I get it. It's busy. I mean, if you go there as a visitor, you don't hardly have time to walk around and see everything. So if you're trying to man a booth and visit everybody, it's just not possible.
What was I going? Oh yeah. So the price of these cars seems to be pretty standard. 48, like the Allegheny Midland one is $48.95. Is that kind of the standard price for most of the cars?
Yeah, I'm pretty much matching the manufacturer's MSRP. So those Intermountain 5277 box cars, if you go to their website, they're the same price.
All right, man. What? Too much excitement for me. Unbelievable. All right. That's it, Chris. You're done. You're finished. You're done.
All right, I'm cut off.
Yeah, you're
Until
cut
next
off.
Time.
Can you say? Can you say? Subway chimes go.
Subway chimes go.
Not yet.
Oh, well, then the answer is yes. Yes, I can.
Oh yeah, and let's let everybody know you had a great. So after Dallas, is it Springfield that's next?
I think I'm going to try and do the Plano show in October or September, October.
Oh, okay. Then
it's here, and I have not yet participated in that one, but I've got enough inventory now. I think I can do it.
And all the inventory's in your kitchen and your living room.
Something like that, yeah. And
your wife you're still married?
Indeed, I am still on the starter wife, 20 years.
And she's not, where does she fit in on all this when she's trying to make dinner, get around the boxes of HO scale freight cars?
I've had a couple of Katie couplers and steel wheels and a few meals, but you just learn to pick it out.
Did she think you were crazy when you started?
Well, she knew I was crazy before we got married. That's why we're still married. So
well, yeah, I understand.
She had it figured out. She's been very, very supportive. I mean, very, very supportive.
And I bet she's excited about I bet she's very excited about the success, eh?
Yeah, she is. And it works out every day. I get off of work. I fulfill the orders. I go and ship them at UPS and the post office in downtown Roanoke. And when she's a school teacher, a 5th grade teacher, so it works out to where I'm shipping that right about when she gets off of school, and we'll go have dinner or something. It works out.
All right. And does she have a name?
Tony.
Oh, Tony.
Toni.
Oh, hey, Tony. How you doing? Tony Palmieri. The name that was.
You got it.
That was the name that did her in. She never had a chance when she heard the name.
Never had a chance.
It certainly wasn't your looks.
Thanks.
All right, now you can say it.
Subway chimes, go.
There's something really wacky with my computer right now.
Well, it's time for a new one.
It is time for a new one, but that's like a job in itself. But the problem right now, somehow the software for this my recording software, it's working.
Mm-hmm.
But for some strange and peculiar reason, so long as I've got the record button on, I can hear you in my headphones. But when I turn the record button off, then the sound comes out of my computer. And it's never done that before. Wow. And I don't know what I've done that has made it do that, but I've done something wrong.
Mm. Yeah, I'm looking into getting a new laptop.
Are you?
Yeah.
Cool. Can I have your old one?
Huh? You don't want my old one.
No, I actually I don't. I was just trying to be polite.
Oh, I'm being polite, but not letting you have it. It's right now. It's so antiquated that they're gonna in I think 3 years they're not going to be supporting it.
What is it? What is it?
I got a MacBook Pro.
Okay. How many years old do you think it is?
I've had it since 2012.
Wow, 11 years. That's about right.
Yeah. Well, no, they say it's less than that. That they tend to they recommend that you move on.
Yeah, I know. It's like I do well if I keep them 4 years.
Yeah. So right now it's on the operating system is Catalina, and that's it. It won't go.
Man. That's it, man. You're done.
I'm done. I can't go any farther. So
what did you think of that show?
I thought it was fantastic.
What was your favorite part? What was your favorite part?
Rapido trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
Rapido trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
Yeah, see how we did that? We
that was
places.
Good.
Yeah.
Because the official way of doing it is that you say Rapido trains.
Yeah. And then you screw it up.
Right.
What's new? I liked that. It was good. It was just so it was 20 minutes from Jordan Smith, who was at Dealer Daze, Rapido's version of Dealer Daze in Canada, which was like a couple of months ago, maybe even 3 months ago. But I found it laying around on the floor. I had dropped it off the desk, and the interview was laying.
What a concept, though.
What, Dealer Daze?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
I would think other retailers or manufacturers do that, don't they? Yeah, I went to a scale train. I went to a scale.
Scale trains in Spring Creek.
I guess we're not supposed to mention scale trains, are we?
Or what? Hey,
yeah, Jordan,
you can.
Jason doesn't care. He cares, but he doesn't care. How about that?
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, it's part of the show. It's part of the show.
Yeah.
So other manufacturers, I guess not many, but a couple of the leading guys do. And then you can always go to Soundtracks. Soundtracks, my buddy over there, George Bogatuk. Yeah. Soundtracks is always welcoming anybody who goes to Durango, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can always go over there. And there's lots of manufacturers that are friendly towards the consumers.
Yeah, we have microtrains. We give tours.
Do you?
Yeah, if you get Mondays through Thursdays when most of the people are working.
Oh, okay.
And they get tours there, and when people come to visit me, I say, "Well, you want to go to or if somebody calls me and says, "Is there something to do?" I say, "Well, you tour microtrains."
I was listening to our interview with Mike May about his new company, Northbound Models.
Yeah,
and you and I were talking away, and then you said something that made me. I think we should get Smoking Joe D'Amato on here again for a chit chat.
Yeah, we should.
Do you think you get in trouble again?
I don't know. In fact, that's something to look into. He's still getting the brunt of the crap from all these keyboard warriors.
Maybe you should stop looking at it.
Well, he can't stop. He gets the email at the company, and usually it's an email that's forwarded by the boss,
right?
And he just has to deal with it, and it's a shame.
Unfortunately, I think it's a very small percentage of people in the hobby that aren't particularly pleasant to be around, but they just make so much noise and make everybody's life so miserable.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like
it's a shame. It's a shame.
It is a shame. There's no need for it. Like it's,
you
know, like you can't, good luck trying to yell at Toyota or General Motors or Ford. I mean, you'll get some sort of, lower level person that's their job is to talk to consumers. But at the end of the day, those guys don't bend.
No.
Like it's like they don't want to hear it. They'll always say, "Thank you for your suggestion. We'll file it away."
Or we'll look into it or whatever.
Exactly.
And you never hear anything from them.
Whereas with model railroading manufacturing, and I'm sure in other hobbies too, but people have way too much access to the people that are producing the product.
Yeah, and they should be happy they're producing it because it's a lot of it is quality stuff and things we've never had. I mean, I remember as a kid, or actually an adult, all I ever saw was Atherton and Roundhouse and some of the other companies. And now you've got these, and they were kits, and you had to put them together, and they were just injected molding, and there wasn't a lot of detail. And if you wanted detail, you had to put it in on. You had to scrape stuff off and put the detail on. And now you're getting this detail, that's just unbelievable.
Who else is really good at detail on their locomotives and cars?
I'm gonna guess it. Some guy from South.
No, Rapido Trains.
Oh, you're fast track to model railroading fun.
If it's N, if it's HO, the fast track is Rapido.
I was thinking about our friend down south there, that Golly G.
Oh,
yeah,
he doesn't. Scott, the table master, enjoys building any kind of model. He enjoys building locomotives and cars, but his favorite thing is to build wood structures.
Yeah, and that one he's doing for Dave right now is just unbelievable.
Our buddy, the Scott, the table master Lister, is going to become legendary in this hobby over the next few years.
Oh yeah, I've already put him on my list.
You know what I was thinking? I should ask him if he would do it. Is to bring his NMRA award-winning model to Springfield so he can put it on the table.
Yeah, definitely.
If he brought one award, the main award, and that structure, that would look great on the table.
Bring the Mount Albert Award.
Yeah, or the Best in Structure Award.
Yeah, bring those two.
Bring both.
Yeah,
2 awards. We'll put it on the table, and we'll flank it with both awards.
Yeah, both awards, and then on either side will be a container of cheese balls.
And then we'll try to get him to buy our dinner.
Yeah.
As a reward.
Yeah, no.
What's wrong with him?
I think that would be cool.
Him buying us dinner? Oh yeah, I'm all over that.
That too, yeah.
I'm all over that, man.
Yeah.
So anyways, that was a show with Jordan Smith from Rapido Trains from months ago and our very good friend Chris Palmieri. Well, I know why I was thinking about getting Smoking Joe back on the show is because you were talking about how now you're working on making locomotive repairs. And what is it you do now?
Well, I'm still doing the casting with resin, the loads and stuff like that. But they've got me now doing putting together the FT, which is the N gauge F unit, and then the F unit for the Z scale. And I'm not talking out of turn. The FT the unit is built in China. We have them make that in China. That's the only thing we get from China or outside the United States. And I basically test them and put the shell on and put all the parts, if there's parts that have to go on there, like the horns and the couplers and all that stuff. And then the F unit, which is the Z scale, is ones that we make the castings. We make they do a die cast of the shell or the chassis, and then a number of us put parts together, and I put together all the parts and then put the shell on it, and that's how we do that. And it's not a lot. It's like, I think I'm doing on this job, I'm doing 70 locomotives, but I have a lot of help because this is the first time doing it. And I've learned so much from putting these things together that I now know I can take them apart by myself and put them back together. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I guess once you do it a bunch of times, eh?
Oh, I was completely lost when I started, and one of the I guess the senior employees for assembly, Michaela, she
started yelling at you.
Oh no, she didn't start yelling. She started showing me the little nuances that I have to know about these things because they're very temperamental. And I'm taking over from a woman that just recently retired, so she stops in once in a while. I said, "Now I know why you retired because of the complex assembly."
When I think nuance, I think Kelly.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
The two things go hand in hand.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. Can you give out our email address?
Yes, our email address is modellerslife@gmail.com. That's that's it. I don't have anything.
That's one L like scale.
Yeah.
Not two L's like Kelly.
Yeah.
You got
that's
it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And like N scale.
Like N scale.
Scale. There you go.
Or Microtrains line. I see they have line in there.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. And if you enjoyed this particular podcast on the free channel, and we don't know why you would, but if you did enjoy it and you'd like to hear twice as much podcasting, and you can join our Patreon channel, which is on our website at amodellerslife.com, and just click on the Patreon link, and boom, for just a few cents a day, you can have twice as much podcasting every week. And on the Patreon side, it's a much more laid back, down home, front porch, take the gloves off. Golly gee, take the gloves off, pick on each other. It's just good hometown fun. Wholesome fun, yeah.
Fun, yeah.
Exactly. Let's see. So we've given out the email address. We talked about Patreon. We talked about our website, amodellerslife.com.
Ooh, I know what.
What?
Shirt with a hot dog on it.
You want a shirt with a hot dog?
I haven't gotten. I got so many shirts now. I just retired 2 shirts.
I know, that's the problem. I have a t-shirt fetish, I think.
Yeah, I've got all the shirts I've got now. I just retired 2 because they had big holes in them. I wore them out.
So yes, if you'd like a t-shirt with a hot dog on it, if you go to the Midwest Model Railroad, and their URL is midwestmodelrr.com. Even though Stephen Atwell doesn't belong to our Patreon channel anymore, Stephen. And you click on that URL and you go across the navigation bar to other, and you hit the drop-down menu. You go into AML shop, and boom, it's a wonderland of AML merchandise, hats, hoodies, T-shirts, whatever you could possibly need.
And they got fast shipping.
And they got really fast shipping. Now we're done.
Good.
All right. No, I think we did pretty good with our intros.
I think we did. Yeah. Well, yeah, like you said, you have to have somebody here to do it with you.
Otherwise, it's hard to listen to.
Yeah, it's like, are we still on the air?
Yeah, we're still on the air.
Okay.
It's like what?
Yeah, nothing.
It's like what? It's like what?
No, I was going to say.
I know what you were going to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like listening to some of the boring hosts on other podcasts.
You said that. I didn't say it.
but you were thinking it.
I'll tell you. I'm going to say this very honest. I will say this. There are many podcasts out there and many good ones out there, and they all provide a different perspective of the hobby. But then there are some out there that are questionable, and that's all, and I truly believe that everybody has a niche or area where they need to excel.
Okay. So that's it. So we're done. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
So remember, a Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10
model locomotive repairmen.
Model locomotive repairmen. N scale or HO?
N scale right now.
Okay.
A Modeler's Life is sponsored by Because I Love Sushi. You could love any old sushi, but would it love you back?
It's another Lincoln Homer.